You're being underpaid, aren't you? I know. You're displaying all of the classic signs. And today we're going to talk about those classic signs and how to get out of a cycle of being overworked and underpaid at work. I'm Ashley. I'm the lead mentor with Mentor Me. And today we're going to talk about signs that you're being underpaid. Because I know that that's the truth for so many of you. You feel underpaid, you feel overworked, you feel undervalued, underappreciated, underseen at work. And despite your degrees and your years of experience and all of the knowledge and skills that you have related to your field, you're still chronically underpaid. And that can be frustrating. That can be annoying. That can be demoralizing. And I want to talk about some of the signs that you're being underpaid so that you can just know them, you can have them, and you can leverage that information to make more money and have more impact in your career. And so there are some classic signs of being underpaid. And I think one of the biggest ones, one of the biggest signs that you're being underpaid is if there's been a lot of movement, a lot of shifts, a lot of transitions in your organization, and you've begun to take on other people's responsibilities at work, right? Over the last 3 years, since the height of the global pandemic, there's just been so many shifts in the world of work. Employers have changed tremendously in the ways that they recruit staff, onboard staff, hire new staff. They're asking staff and teams to do more with less. They're shifting job responsibilities and job titles in really impactful ways. And the work that you're required to do maybe 2-3 years ago, you're asked to do more, and like expectations are higher, and often the stakes are higher too. And in that same time, we've seen the Great Resignation, we've seen quiet quitting, we've seen all these ways in which employees are kind of taking their power back, right? They're transitioning away from jobs that no longer serve them. They're taking their mental health days. They're working remotely, right? They're doing things really differently at work. And so this has caused a lot of movement, a lot of resignation, a lot of, jobs are short staffed. They are having trouble filling positions. And so what do? They pass off that work to other employees, and they ask those employees to do more, right? Instead of hiring new staff, instead of hiring new team members, instead of bringing on new people, they'll often ask their existing staff to do more, to expand their workload, to expand their scope of work, to expand their skill set. And, sometimes they will do, a slight adjustment. Maybe they'll raise your salary a couple $1,000s, or maybe they'll give you a new title. But the amount of work that you're doing is you're basically taking on someone else's job, maybe 1 or 2 people's job, and you're only being paid a slight increase to take on all of that additional work. And that is a real problem, right? Like that's a real problem. And that, is unfair and quite honestly unequitable, right? And so, if at your employer, you all have experienced a significant transition, layoffs, firing of people have transitioned away from the job. And now you find that you are the last one standing, right? You're the last person there. 5 of your direct peers have transitioned. Your boss has found a new job. You're now, reporting, from a whole new person. If you're seeing lots of transition in your organization and you're the last one standing, chances are you're being underpaid, right? And how do I know that? Because so often you're being asked to do more and more work with less. You're asked to take on additional responsibilities, and you're asked to do additional work. And let me be clear, there's nothing wrong with supporting your colleagues and supporting a peer and taking on some additional work for a finite and specific period of time. But if you're being asked to take on a whole new function, a whole new, area of responsibility, or double your workload without appropriate compensation, that is a real concern, right? And I want to raise the flag on that. I particularly want to raise the flag on that for new professionals, for professionals of color, for women. These are often vulnerable populations that people take advantage of, thinking they don't know better, thinking, they can learn a new skill. But we want to make sure that you're being paid equitably, and that that your skill set and the value that you bring to your organization are being compensated appropriately. And so if your organization has experienced a lot of transition, if you've taken on a lot of additional roles, a lot of additional responsibilities, there's a chance chance that you're being underpaid. And that's something to investigate. That's something to evaluate. And that's something to really look into to make sure that you don't fall into the second trap of you're being underpaid, is that you are experiencing a lot of resentment, right? And you don't have to, you don't have to, give me a heart here. I won't ask for a heart if you're discontent and you're disgruntled at work, right? I won't do that here. I know this is a public forum, but if you feel disgruntled and frustrated at work, feel free to just send me a DM, right? If you feel like you are being taken advantage of at work, if you feel resentful at work, that's a sign that you're being underpaid, right? Because resentment, the definition of resentment, the core of resentment is I'm doing more than what I'm being valued for. I'm doing more than what I'm being paid for. I'm doing more than what I'm being, that's more than my title. That's more than my scope of work, right? If you're experiencing massive resentment at work, that's a concern, right? Because when you're being paid equitably, when your organization sees the value of your work and your value of your expertise, there's no reason to experience resentment, right? There's no reason to be disgruntled, right? When you are happy at work, when you feel fulfilled at work, when you're doing meaningful work, when you're paid appropriately, you're not discontent. You're not disgruntled, right? But if you're experiencing a lot of disgruntlement and feeling disgruntled, if you're feeling resentful at work, that's a sign that you're being underpaid. And this resentment can come out in a lot of ways. So sometimes I see resentment, especially if you're a supervisor or you're a leader in your organization, resentment can come out as like, I don't want to meet with my staff. I don't want to meet with my team. I'm just going to put my head down and do the work, right? If you're not willing to meet with your staff, if you're not willing to meet with your team, if you're not willing to engage people, you might be experiencing resentment at work, right? If you're kind of shutting everybody out and I don't have time to meet with y'all, I don't have time to go to the staff retreat, I don't want to hang out with y'all. If you're experiencing a lot of that, you may be experiencing resentment. Right? If you're isolating, if you want to be in a corner by yourself, if you don't want to talk to people, if you're not going to the work happy hours, if you've cut off everybody, if you come to the meeting right on time, put your head down, don't say anything and leave right after, right? If your camera is always off in the Zoom meetings, you may be being underpaid and you may be acting out of resentment at work, right? Right? And if that resonates with you, just throw some hearts up on the screen. I'm not saying that's your story. I'm just saying you can identify and understand resentment from being underpaid, right? If that's something that you maybe have experienced yourself, or you know someone who's experienced, or you've seen those behaviors before, just let me know if that's resonating, right? And thanks for those hearts. I'm glad that that's resonating, right? Another sign of discontentment or disassociation or dissonance from work is that you feel combative. You feel angry. You don't even know why. Somebody like you get an email and you're just like, oh, what do they want? Right? Like you wake up in the morning angry. You're frustrated. You're annoyed, right? You get a meeting on your calendar. You're like, why did they schedule a meeting with me on Wednesday? Well, it's Wednesday at 9:00. Like, why wouldn't they schedule a meeting with you? Right? Like, this is very common, right? It's very common that if you're being underpaid at work, you are very angry. You're experiencing anger, frustration out of nowhere, right? You don't even know where it's coming from. It's all of a sudden you just feel hostile about everything, right? And sometimes this bleeds over into your personal life. You're feeling hostile at your partner. You're feeling hostile with your kids. You're feeling hostile with your best friend. Oh, I don't want to go. I don't have time for that, right? You're angry, right? It's likely because you're being underpaid. It's not because you're tired. It's not just because you don't like morning meetings. It's because you don't feel like you should have to be going to all these meetings considering how little they're paying you, right? That's a sign that you might be being underpaid. Right? And I think it's really important to understand the source of things. Like sometimes we are angry, we're frustrated, we're discontent, we're annoyed, and we just think that, this is just how it is, or we blame it on other things. But it's really important to evaluate where things are coming from, why we feel the way we feel, find the source and address the source. And if you're constantly angry and frustrated and disgruntled, right? It may be a sign that you're being underpaid, right? Because every little thing about work annoys you. That's not the case with people who are being paid well. People who are being paid well are happy to do their job. They're happy to do their job. They know they're being compensated appropriately. They're like, great, Katrina, thanks for sending that email. Let me get right to that, right? But if you're lacking fulfillment in your career, if you're lacking If you're not feeling fulfilled, if you don't feel valued, right? If you're not earning the kind of money you feel like you should earn, you're constantly annoyed with your work. You're constantly feeling like, why are they asking me to do this? They should ask somebody else, right? So we want to check in with that. Like if that's something we're experiencing, we want to check in with that, and we want to assess that. So we talked about the number one sign that you're being underpaid is that if your organization has had a lot of transition and you've taken on a lot of extra work, extra duties, other duties as assigned. If you're taking on a lot of that, that may be a sign that you're being underpaid if you're not being compensated for the extra work. If you are discontent, disgruntled, dismissive at work, right? That might be a sign that you're being underpaid. If you feel undervalued constantly at work, you feel antagonistic at work, if you're angry and frustrated at work, that might be a sign that you're being underpaid because you don't feel like your organization values you. Maybe you started to devalue yourself, and now that's resulting in anger and frustration and annoyance at work, right? And so that's another sign that you might be being underpaid. Another sign that you might be being underpaid, and this is one that I think that not enough people talk about, but that I think is something I'm often wanting to bring to the light, is that, over the course of your time in your current role, over the course of your time in your industry, you've picked up skills, right? You are not the same person you were 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 7 years ago, 10 years ago. You've picked up additional degrees, certifications, years of experience. You've sat on committees. You've done meaningful work. You've grown as a professional, right? And some of you, quite frankly, have outgrown your current role, right? Say hallelujah if it applies, right? Some of you have outgrown your current role. And so, yes, you're being underpaid, but not for the job you're in, for the skill set that you have, right? You're being paid like a coordinator because you're a coordinator, even though you have a director level skill set. You're being paid like an associate director when you should be a senior director, right? You're being paid like, an entry level professional when you're a mid-level professional with 7 years of experience. Fope said hallelujah. So that means it's resonating, right? So we have to take accountability, right? When our skill set, when our knowledge, when our expertise, when the value that we bring to the organization has increased, we need to make sure that our position titles and our pay are increasing as well. And if you have grown tremendously in your role, whether you've been in it for 3 years or 5 years or 7 years or 12 years, if you've grown tremendously in your role, but your pay and your title have not, that's a sign that you may be being underpaid, right? And this is not a call for you to walk into your boss's office and say, I demand a raise. This is not a call for that. But this is a call for awareness, right? This is a call for awareness. Right? I think so often high achieving professional women, Black women in particular, don't recognize that they're being underpaid. They think that this is what everybody makes. Or they think, because of where I live, this, salaries here are lower. Or, because I don't have this degree or this credential, I can't make that much money. Or, because I don't have this title, I can't make that much money. But that's absolutely not true, right? I remember when I first started Mentor Me about 5 years ago, people would come up to me and they say, Ashley, I need to transition out of education. I used to serve lots of educators. And they say, I need to transition out of education because, educators don't make no money. And I'm like, where you hear that at? Where you heard that at? Right? Where you learn that at? Where'd you get your information from? Because it's absolutely not true, right? There are hundreds of thousands of educators who are making 6+ figures, right? But you're not making 6+ figures and you think it's something wrong with the industry when it may just be your employer or your department or your unit or the way you're positioning yourself as an expert, right? So absolutely, when I think about like teachers, public school teachers in this country, they are severely underpaid. Yes, absolutely. I think that's pretty much across the board. But I think that there are other levels of educators that can be paid well. And it's important that we don't just blame the entire industry, but that we work to position ourselves to earn more money, right? And that's the goal, right? And so if you have taken on other positions, other titles, other roles, and you've not been appropriately compensated, if you constantly find yourself disgruntled, angry, frustrated, demeaned at work, and you think it has to do with something with the fact that you're not being paid appropriate, and so you get frustrated when they ask you to do things at work, or if it's just the fact that you've outgrown your current position, right? chances are you're being underpaid, right? And as a mentor, my job is to help high achieving professional women make more money and have more impact using the skills, knowledge, talent, and expertise that they already have, right? That's my job. That's what I do better than anyone, right? I'm so proud to say that I just helped one of my mentees secure a $35,000 salary increase using the skills she already had, right? She was a dynamic mid-level, event manager. She was doing large scale events in the corporate space, and she recently secured a role in the nonprofit space, securing a $35,000 salary increase and securing a higher level director level role, right? And so if you are a professional woman who has concerns about if you're underpaid or not, if you think, yeah, Ashley, I feel like I'm being underpaid. I see other women that work in my field, they're making way more money. Or I feel like I need to transition out of this field and I need to transition into a new field because I need to make more money. Or if you feel like, Ashley, I've been taking on so much work at work lately and I don't want to transition away from this organization, but I need to figure out a way to ask for a raise, then I invite you to schedule a call with me. If you know you want to make more money and you want to do that this month, if it's a priority for you to find and secure a new role or ask for a raise so that you can make more money this year, the time for you to work with me is now. You can schedule a call right on my website at mentor-me.org. Again, that's mentor-me.org. I'm accepting new mentees right now, and I'm really excited to help you move from underpaid and undervalued to having a fulfilling career where you're paid adequately for the level of expertise that you have. And the final thing I want to say on this topic is that if you are a professional woman who's taken the Mother Teresa approach to your career, sis, I'm here to wake you up and say no more. No more can you be helping everybody else, serving everybody else, helping your clients, helping your students, helping your community, helping your church family, helping your siblings, helping your parents, and not being paid adequately for the work that you do at work, right? You're helping everybody doing everything, but you can't help yourself out of a salary that's $20,000 less than you should be making at this stage in your career. That's a problem. Right? That's a problem, and that's something we need to address immediately. So I do want to make sure that if that sounds like you, if you know you're being underpaid, let's schedule a call so that we can talk about exactly how much you're being underpaid and develop a plan to help you make more money, right? We can't stay here. You can't afford to make so little money. Not anymore. Not with inflation rising. Not with the Feds raising interest rates, right? You literally cannot afford to make so little money. So it's time to make a transition, and I'm excited to help you do that. Again, you can go right to my website to schedule that call at mentor-me.org. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.